to our monthly Heart Warrior and Training Club meet. You see the Training Club logo now, just real quick. I have switched just to make it a little easier, the Heart Warrior to the Training Club with or without coaching. It really is what that is, and times like this where we, well, where we're dealing with a society that is so toxic that everything seems to be a war, I find it just a little more conducive to call this Energy Training Club, because that's actually what you guys, you Heart Warriors, are doing. You're doing consistent self-healing training. And with that, you are increasing the capacity for your heart. Yeah, you're cultivating your heart consciousness. And for that, I want to congratulate you before we start talking about the May energies and these latest experiences here that we had with the Grace Gaia Sophia mini marathon. It is important that you are aware of what the purpose of such training is. And that is to gain the courage, to gain the antidote, if you will, to an increasingly heartless society and development, global development around us. And this is very difficult to process for those of us who are empathic, who are energetically sensitive. And when we hear those messages, like, oh yeah, humanity's evolving and all that, it seems to have so little practical application. I wanted to talk to you guys about this here first, because this relates to May energies and relates to the Gaia Sophia, the divine wisdom. Now, how do you handle that? How do you reconcile the fact that you are investing so much time and so much care for your heart, for your empathy, for, cultivating relationships, and yet you look outside and you see that it seems to be harder and harder for people to even acknowledge or value that. Let's talk about this a little bit. How do you deal with this, guys? What comes up for you when I'm saying these words? For May, I forecasted, an increasing tension and really an enforced sort of karmic realization, namely that it is now time to stand up, to stand in your own light. Why is that? Because it's getting harder and harder to just, well, not harder, actually kind of easier, because we get coerced into just going with the flow, but it gets harder and harder to stay in your heart. You guys notice that?
Hi.
Hi, Anita.
Hi, it's Anita. I actually feel that it can be motivating. Maybe it sounds a bit backwards, but the more resistance you see outside in the world, and I can maybe feel or think that I can make a little bit of a difference, maybe. Yeah.
That's spoken by a true heart warrior. Okay, you find that a motivating challenge. Okay, it motivates you to do this even more because you feel.
Because for me, there's no other way. I can't go
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
No, there's no other possibility, actually.
This is a really, really strong impulse, and this is what we call a spiritual impulse, right? Because if it was a material or worldly impulse, if it was a worldly impulse, what are worldly, physical 3D impulses, guys? How do they feel? What do they say?
There's a lot of fear.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, fear. There's much fear being brought forward, I think.
All impulses that have to do with survival,
Yeah,
right?
that's the main thing at the moment, I think.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
survival gets triggered.
Yeah.
I mean, things are, let's say, not as they used to be. Yeah. So every time change comes around, fear gets triggered. So the material impulse, has to do with our instinct and our drive to survive. Yeah. And the first thought is obviously, like, how can I make this work? How can I pay my bills? How can I, yeah, exactly, Cindy, how can I play it safe? Okay, so there's an impulse in us that tries to maintain what we have. And that's how I usually describe the ego. Yeah, the ego is not really interested in what you said, Annette. It's not really interested in, maybe bringing more light or more love or more truth into this world. That's not coming from the ego. It's coming from a different part in you, and he just so beautifully expressed it. He said, there is no other way. Let's talk about that for a moment. This sounds desperate almost, if you just look at the words, but if you tune into the feeling that you're transporting with it, I can clearly see what it is that you're saying.
Yeah, if I don't follow it, I will let myself down.
Yes.
That's that's the worst thing ever.
Okay, this is a huge insight. This is a huge insight, Annette. Yeah. What you just said, you need to understand this. Translated means something like, my integrity, my values command me to stand up for the heart, the truth, the freedom, the love, the beauty in this world. It commands me. And if I don't follow it, I would let a piece or part of me down to a point, and this is very relevant for you. This is probably why your conviction is so high, yeah, which can be felt in this karmic guilt. Now, karmic guilt is an impulse or an energetic or spiritual, if you will, impulse that reminds you of something. What does it remind you of? Well, to not let yourself down.
Yeah, to follow my heart.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, this is extremely important. Annette, I know that you've worked on this for a long time. What has been the source of the greatest pain in your life? In a nutshell, it's that exact karmic guilt, isn't it?
Yes, and as it came forward here again in the marathon, the mini
And
marathon.
yeah, it always comes forward for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is an integral part of you.
Yes, it is.
And for the first, like, say, 50 years of your life, it created a lot of pain, a lot of struggle. The struggle with your ego. you know, the struggle to fit in, yeah, to hide, to not show yourself, to not make yourself vulnerable, and yet at the same time judging yourself for not being like the others, you know, and perhaps sometimes being tempted to just do things the way others do it. You know?
Yeah, I did that yes, absolutely.
But it was the source, it was the core of all the pain, if you think about it. When did you experience in your lifetime, in your journey, the biggest, I want to say, relief or moment of peace? Do you know?
Yeah, it was when I got the cancer. I think I felt a huge relief and wake up at that moment.
A lot of people will report that.
Yeah.
Just so you know, that cancer saved their life. Yeah, that's literally
Yeah,
a book title. My
crazy.
cancer saved my life.
Yeah.
But this is interesting, right? Because cancer
Yeah.
is one of those big fears that we all have, and
Yes.
it's kind of sounds backwards. Yeah, it's like, wait, can you explain that, Annette, for those who are listening to this? How a cancer diagnosis, a terminal or, you know, like pretty far advanced cancer diagnosis, quote unquote, saved your life, brought you so far, the greatest moment of inner peace.
Yeah, it has to do with all the work I've done before that moment.
So
It
how
was
long was
like
this ago? Just so that we get a bit of a timeline here.
2 years ago now.
Okay, so 2 years. So in the part, like just to know what your whole journey is about. So you are, how old are you now, if I may ask?
54.
Okay, 54. 2 years
Yeah.
ago, you got diagnosed with a fatal cancer,
Yeah.
and you just said that it was everything, all the work that you've done before, prior to that
Yeah.
cancer diagnosis, has led to you realizing something or experiencing something in that moment where the doctors or whatever told you that if you don't do this or this or that, you're going to die. And this is very important, okay? So you saying that everything that you've done before has led to you in that moment
Mm.
having a
Yes.
spiritual experience.
Yes, absolutely. It was like the dots connected.
Could you give us just a little bit of an insight, like feeling wise, like how it felt like?
It was, yeah, clarity, huge clarity.
What did this sound
And
like in your head or feel like in your body?
actually, I think if you look at the Hawking scale, I think
Uh-huh.
I was feeling love at some, I was up there. It was so, yeah,
Isn't this interesting?
crazy because I just understood what was going on and why I got it, and actually I was sure that I would survive it.
So
I
there was an inner knowing, there was no fear of the future, there was no survival impulse in a way, right?
no, I knew I could get through it.
Mhm. So here, like on
I had no doubt.
this level here,
Yeah,
allowing abundance,
yeah,
healing, being fully present.
and that was because of all the work I've done before, and yeah, I knew I had the tools.
You knew you had the tools,
Yes,
and that was the antidote to you going into panic with
yeah,
your ego that obviously at the disclosure of, like, you know, some kind of terminal illness, goes into this hyper mode. Yeah, like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Okay, so the worst fear coming true, or potentially coming
Really,
true.
it was just like you were getting a task. Well, you have to do this. Okay, I will do that. I
So
knew
not
what to do. It's
you
just a
knew what to
project,
do. Oh
kind of.
my,
Yeah.
this is so powerful what you're sharing right now, Anita.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the power of the spiritual impulse versus the power, or, you know, force of the worldly or the material impulse. There was a higher you in that moment. You experienced a higher version of yourself,
Yes.
and that gave you clear instructions. There was no doubt. You had no anxiousness, no ruminating,
No.
which you usually have.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm pretty good at that.
So this is amazing.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Okay. What you are telling us here, Annette, is that without knowing, you had been training for this all your life.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
This whole karmic journey of yours,
Yeah.
that was about overcoming the fear, the anxiousness
Yeah.
of the ego slash survival slash 3D impulse.
And that's the same feeling I have when you talk about what you started to talk about, how the world is feeling right now. It's the
Mhm.
same feeling I have. This is also a task or project, of course.
It's the greater one. It's not just
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
you, right? It's there's
Not
more
that
to it.
I don't have bad days
Yeah,
too.
this isn't about you. Exactly. This isn't just about you surviving your cancer.
No, no. But the feeling of okay, I can contribute in my way
Yeah.
somehow, in my small way.
And let me ask you something. Do you feel more confident now that you survived your cancer
Yeah,
than you
yeah,
did before?
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely.
And isn't
Yeah.
it that, yeah, isn't it that, like, when you know that you can, and let's just use energetic lingo here, that you can out vibrate something physical
Mm,
through your spiritual conviction, devotion, that whether it's your own stuff or other people's stuff or the world's stuff,
mm,
is also possible.
yeah.
Now, the realism of that, this is all beautiful spiritual theory. The realism of that is that it's not going to work like, you know, you going out there on your wooden box and standing and preaching to people that they need to find divine wisdom within themselves and train their heart, and then all of a sudden everybody is going to convert. That's not how this goes.
Absolutely not.
It
You have
happens
to to talk to people where they're at.
that, and
Yeah.
you also have to realize that, you know, even though your light has started to shine brighter through that experience and through, well, more or less to prove, yeah, that healing is possible, that your light has an impact on a certain, you know, environment, on a certain group of people only. Yeah. Obviously, the impact that we have, by the way, I've mentioned this a few times, they actually measured this, they did scientific studies on how many people's lives get touched by one normal person throughout their lifetime, like an average lifespan of 75, 80 years. And it's an interesting number because it's very difficult to imagine, but an average life, and this is just an average normal, you know, maybe conformist life, if you will, has an impact on 2 million other people throughout generations. So not like all alive at the same time. Yeah, but you know, little things that you do, little things that you say, they have an impact on 2 million other lives. Now, when somebody grows into this awareness that all the suffering and the struggles that people experience, that has a purpose, and that it brings out this higher self in people. Yeah, and you want to go out there and have a bigger impact on others. How would you do that? You can't yell it at them. That's not going to happen. How can we have a greater impact on, you know, how can we increase touching 2 million people's lives into maybe 4 million people's lives?
By being more open about my experiences.
Open, I guess, and sharing.
Sharing, yeah.
Letting others participate.
Yeah.
In yours, yes. We just here experienced that. And it was very powerful what you said earlier. So let's do math. It's obviously not exactly that way. But let's just, for simplicity's sake, follow down this road. If your normal life, you know, impacts 2 million people, what would you have to do in order to increase that number to 4 million people? How would that number double up? Do you think by touching one person's life, who then has an insight, who then changes something, such as, you know, learning from your experience and trusting more in their own spiritual inner impulse, do you think that would double up?
Yeah, actually.
Number?
Yeah, I could.
It could.
If people get really affected by it, then they will share it, pass it on. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure of that, actually.
Yeah.
That's what I feel.
A lot of times, that kind of insight that we're talking about, yeah, this connection with our higher self and the trust in it and allowing it to be there, you know, in those moments of pain and struggle. A lot of times that comes at the very last hours or minutes or days of life for people on their deathbed. Yes, a lot of people who have something like this spiritual impulse, you know, when they're in the dying process. Now, when this happens in the dying process, which neither of us has died yet, I mean, not in this lifetime, people who have had a near-death experience report about this, they confirm this, that it occurs. But what happens to the impact when this spiritual impulse occurs in the moment of dying, or the moments, the days of dying? What happens to that? Does it impact other people? What do you think?
No.
You have been there. You have accompanied someone dying.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Right?
No, not especially if it's not spoken about.
Yeah.
No.
So
No, I don't think so.
this is part of the problem.
Mm.
We can assume that maybe we can assume that everybody has that impulse at some point. Yeah. Latest in the moment of dying. But the impact that it can have, the power to light up others, only comes to an unfoldment, only unfolds when that is done consciously during our lifetime, not on our deathbed. Our deathbed is a very intimate experience with the divine, the universe, or whatever. It no longer has an impact on 3D, other than the fact that we are gone after we died, and the pain of loss and so forth that it causes for the family and all that, and the loved ones. But that light, yeah, is then no longer impacting for others. So out of that contemplation here, what do you think needs to happen when, Cindy, I'm reading your text, just speak into the microphone. It's a lot easier if you can. Out of this insight now, what can we conclude? How does that perhaps influences our understanding of the purpose of life? And then in conjunction with karma, yeah, like karma as in sort of the force that keeps on reminding us to balance something out or to follow something, yeah, through repetition. What do you think this spiritual impulse ultimately triggers in us? As opposed to the 3D material worldly impulse. The 3D worldly impulse that we have, that is linked to our instincts and drives, to procreate, to survive, to, on a lower level, to care about our environment. Okay, so all that is fine for as long as we live, right? But what do we care what happens after we're gone? The worldly impulse does not extend the impact a person has on the world, other than, maybe through the amount of money that they can inherit to somebody. So how does all this contemplation and the insights that we have through that, how does that help us understand purpose in life? If we have this duality in us, where we have this material impulse, survival, and so forth, that is, to a degree selfish in nature, it can be expanded. We can create affluence for our children or for our loved ones and so forth. Now we can even go as far as, doing altruistic things and helping others to create abundance. But if this is all just reduced to the survival and the material level, the impact is not as powerful as, perhaps showing someone how to get past pain, or how to overcome fear, or how to trust, in this spiritual being, that soul being, that is in us all. Basically, the difference between giving somebody fish and teaching somebody how to fish. What does that tell you?
That sharing is very, very powerful.
Yeah. And also the kind of sharing. Right? Now, of course,
Yeah, of course.
like, of course, sharing our food and stuff like that helps people for like what? For half a day. Okay, it helps them for half a day.
But sharing your wisdom, your
Yes.
life views,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
what you can pass on.
That's how you can teach
Yeah.
how to fish. What happens if we would stop teaching each other how to fish?
Yeah.
Nobody would know how to fish anymore. We're seeing this happening and with the younger generations, the disconnect from nature and from growing foods and where foods come from and so forth. It's kind of funny when you think about it, but the disconnect is so big, so great, that most people are not aware that chicken nuggets come from actual chicken. It's sad, but that's just on the 3D level here. So we've gotten to a place where we understand that the purpose in life, and what gives meaning to life itself, this light that gets ignited through our spiritual journey, where we follow, where we educate ourselves, where we try to understand all these things. That's the very thing we're doing here right now. The devotion to that, and the daily practice of that gives life a different meaning. So summarizing, what is it that you can see now? And you put all this together. What brings meaning and purpose to life, to your life? More than anything.
Constantly working on myself, improving. Yeah.
Okay, that's the daily practice. That's the devotion.
Yeah.
The devotion is basically sort of the training forward. Like you said earlier, it's all the stuff that you did before you needed it. Okay. But what's the actual purpose of it?
Mm.
The purpose of our life, if you will, that comes with many opportunities to follow our spiritual impulse, is to understand that this light is kind of like a fire, like a torch, that needs to be passed on. And not just here in this worldly world, while we are alive in this lifetime. Remember, we're a soul with a body. We are a spirit being that is having a 3D experience for a reason that often eludes us, but that's why we're talking about it. What is a potential purpose of this is to increase the light, to get better at something, to shine brighter, if you will. And as we are doing this, our impact increases. Now, that impact is not just measured in how many people's lives or hearts you've touched. That impact is the currency with which your karmic journey here, your 3D life's journey, is measured in the spirit world. The part where you came from and the part where you're going to go to after this 3D experience is over with. That's sort of the life energy bucks that you earn yeah, while you are here in 3D. You're taking this with. So the trick is to figure out how to increase those, well, life energy bucks. That's just something here that, we give out a little sort of reward, bucks to the children at schools that they can redeem later with the treasure box. Okay, yeah, so we're increasing our savings account, if you will, through spreading our light, through becoming aware of it, through devoting ourselves to the refinement of it, the improvement, as you said. And that builds up a treasure for us, a treasure in the spirit world. And that's the one that we return to when this life is over with. So every time we touch somebody else's life, somebody else's heart, every time we stand in our own light, and don't allow anything to let ourselves down, to let our light to be extinguished or dimmed because of the compromises that we make in life, or because of, this or that, cancer diagnosis or car accident or that. Every time we remember our light, it allows us not only for our inner light to become brighter and wider, it also brings more healing into your life, as Annette described it to us, and that of others. Yeah, healing, yeah, as the resonance of abundance. More. So the purpose of this 3D life then is to protect and nurture our inner light through this devotion to our spiritual impulse and the understanding, yeah, that comes through it, and then ultimately through embodying it. Yeah, like you said, it's a constant improvement. So our embodiment process is a constant refinement. This is one of the biggest wisdoms in life, to recognize that what all this life is about is to bring more light, is to bring more truth, is to bring more love into this world, which is, what we get inspired by, which is what we get motivated and excited by, yeah, which we then translate into loving what we do by only doing what we love. Not love as in comfort zone, as in like what brings peace to the ego mind, no. To what brings peace to this relationship with our higher self. Do everything you do with love. This excitement, yeah, this flaring up of your light, it's like an eternal flame that spreads to those around you. So when we look at the Gaia Sophia process that we just went through, which is an advanced spiritual healing modality, what were some of the things that we uncovered there? Let me switch to our form here. where I reported about those sessions, and you guys were there on these sessions. What were some of the things that we uncovered as we were trying to do this step by step? First, resurrection, that's the rebirth of our light. Then, repentance, that's reclaiming the love for ourselves. And then lastly, devotion. The Sophianic merging, Sophianic comes from Sophia. Sophia means wisdom. And the reason why I call it Gaia Sophia is because it is the wisdom here on this earthly plane. Gaia stands for the planet Earth. And it stands for the Divine Mother, the divine feminine aspect, and all its traits. There's a beautiful mythology, and I've written a little bit about this in the instructions, about Gaia's journey. Yeah. And one of the most beautiful parts of the mythology of Gaia is that she decides to stay with her children, which are the children of Gaia, even though it meant that she got expelled from this godly, heavenly realm by doing this. It reminds us of the maternal care, that is stronger than any other power here on this planet. The care and the love and the compassion for our children, and symbolically, not just like bio children. Do you know what I mean? And it is the Heavenly Father, the Divine Father energy, that provides us with this life force and the protection, the sun, here on this planet Earth. Yeah, without the sun, there was no life on this planet. That is bringing in basically the paternal care. And so as these divine children that we are, being protected and nurtured by these higher spiritual hierarchies that are out there, that are providing this training ground for us, we are growing up. We are growing up to become, heavenly grown-ups at some point. In the last energy talk, I called this gods in training. We're all gods in training. But at this very moment in our, let's say, karmic, cosmological karmic journey, we are just children. And this is what we learn through nature and through the cosmos. We learn that everything evolves, that everything transforms, that there's a constant birth and rebirth cycle here that improves. But there's a certain ingredients are needed, and certain processes that we have to go through. Namely, first of all, of course, accepting our limitations, then, anything that has to do with, the outer conditions. Then also, the letting go process. Like that we clearly can't have everything that our ego wants. And then as we mature, we realize that it really isn't about what the ego wants. That it's about deeper things in life. And so our journey then, is not just the journey of one lifetime, your life, not just the journey of, one nation or one civilization, It is the journey of all of us that are in this training program, in this God's and training program. Yeah. So in the first session, we found out that we are carrying a whole lot of burdens around with us. So I love this picture here because it's this butterfly, and this beautiful butterfly, you know, that has all the potential to fly away, but it tied itself to this rock. Did you want to share? Did you want to add anything to this, Aneta?
No, yeah. Oh, I would say about the first one where I was present. We had something about the freedom.
Yes.
Feeling of freedom that we all have, that
We did.
carried us through all the pain and suffering and
This is something you experienced firsthand, right?
yeah.
Because I mean, it wasn't until you were faced with this terminal diagnosis that you realized that you have a choice. You don't have to carry this rock, drag this rock around with you. And that liberated you.
Mm.
Yeah. And what that was that brought the freedom to you, you called this a moment of peace. Yeah. Peace, where you realized you had a choice. Okay. It reminded you of everything that you have already unconsciously, yeah, through that spiritual impulse that you had trained for, namely the way of your heart. Yeah,
it is all along. That's what I mean.
Yes, what truly, truly matters.
Small promptings again and again and again that I choose to follow. Yeah.
So here I wrote in the report for the first session, from a deeper spiritual initiation perspective, the process we entered with this first session was the insight that we all have the freedom to choose our way.
Yeah,
we have that built in.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. We just didn't know this yet when we were younger. So the revelation here, yeah, this revelation in our first session struck a deep chord in us, and will probably still be reverberating. I was writing this right after this session. Yeah. And prompting us maybe to more lovingly forgive ourselves for letting ourselves down in the past, because we had the impulse, but we did not have the understanding yet what this could look like. And this is, you know, this resurrection. This is the moment where you realize that, well, it all starts with you. Yeah. And first, you're going to have to understand that you actually have a choice, and that choice prompts you to love yourself regardless of all the burdens and the struggles and the pains. Now, consciousness means if we knew better, we would have done better. Yeah, we do, and we would do better in the future. But in order to know better, we first need to understand. And to understand better, we need to connect within and allow our higher consciousness, our divine consciousness, to dissolve the limitations of the ego, so that we can begin to understand what the ego, which is the earthly, the material impulse, cannot know. That was our resurrection. Yeah, it was the impulse. And then I pointed at the energy talk, because I was talking about the purpose of our karmic journey in this week's energy talk was unrelated. I'm always surprised how these things then end up relating with another. And in our second session, which was a bit more intense because it triggered most of our mental beliefs and the conditionings that we had. And so here I go on to show the chakras that were involved in a bit more detailed way, how to identify when they're balanced, when they're not balanced, and so forth. And it took us about half the session to tickle out all these beliefs that we have that are tied to our fears, yeah, to the worldly, to the material impulse, yeah, and to realize, remember guys, how it was almost embarrassing it felt embarrassing to speak those beliefs out loud, because as we were becoming aware of them, we realized how ridiculous they are. Yeah, that all that we perceive as our flaws or shortcomings, that is sort of the reason why we can't be loved. Yeah, because we're too this or too that, we don't deserve to be loved. And there we stood in truth with ourselves. We realized that these mindsets, these constructs, yeah, that come, that come from the outside for the most part. And yes, granted, they are linked to our inner child and they're linked to things that happened to us in the past. But that they are created in a time where we didn't have the understanding yet. And now you do. So what are you going to do with this? How do you reconcile that? It's not your parents' fault. You know that. But are you actually doing better? No. Most of us have wonderful psychological understanding of stuff and yet still act like it. Still act like an inner child, pointing fingers at, because my mom and because my dad and my siblings and this and this and that, because I experienced that and the abuse and this. Not to denigrate or diminish our subjective experience of trauma, obviously that is real, but has it never crossed your mind to ask what the purpose of all this is? Yeah, so session number 2, that is aligned, it was called a spiritual salvation, but it was aligned to repentance, standing in truth with ourselves, showed us, that it is us who are withholding love. It is us who are punishing ourselves for the aspects in ourselves that we don't want to or can't accept or love about ourselves. And that needs to be corrected. That's what repentance is. Now, when you realize, shoot, I'm the one that allows this mindset, this belief to run me. And in our last session yesterday, Sophianic merging, becoming one with divine wisdom through etheric self-correction. That was very beautiful. We went through these waterfalls in which we let go of all these attachments together, and we realized that all that truly, truly matters is love. But without freedom, there cannot be truth, and without truth in our life, without being true with ourselves, there cannot be love. So at the end of the day, this inner battle between our worldly and our spiritual impulse needs to be simplified. Yeah? We need to strip all the complication and the elaboration that the ego wants to see in the journey. We need to strip that off. We need to shed it. Yeah, and then we realize it's actually pretty simple. First, I need to realize that I have a choice. And that brings freedom back to me, because I then realize that I can change. Yeah, I can change, I can evolve, I can self-correct. It doesn't have to be the way it is. And then step number two, well, I'm going to have to stand in truth with that, because, whatever that is that needs to be stripped, first needs to be seen. It needs to be acknowledged. And we can realize that our journey is not about becoming better at finding purpose or getting better at this or that or owning more. It's about letting go of all that is in the way. That is what truth brings to us. It allows us to see what is in the way, our mindsets, our beliefs. And then we can realize that these 3 graces, that they are indeed linked to these 3 pillars of grace and the Trinity here that allows us to grow into our higher self. Choice, which is freedom, truth, and love. And so you just went through the 3 stages of spiritual initiation with this modality, whether you were there live or did the transmission and self-guidance, irrelevant. It's just an offering, yeah, to do this live, to learn that it's about dedicating one's life to creating what brings more of this freedom, truth, and love into this world. Yeah, how you can shine your light brighter, how you can first, of course, ignite it within yourself, yeah, remembering it, and then refining it, and then passing it on. And then the 7 stages of embodiment that you're all familiar with, which is basically just, you know, those are all just direction manuals here as to what all this entails. Yeah. At the, you know, this is a recurring, these stages of embodiment are recurring. That keeps on going, weaving through all different layers of self. But at the end of it, we realize that it's all about integrating this higher awareness, this I am awareness, into physical reality, and to bring this into this world. And that is then the treasure that we take with into the spirit world. So we're doing this for ourselves, you know, by allowing ourselves to spiritually evolve. And we're doing it for the world because we're contributing to the overall evolution of consciousness here for everybody, including the planet, including the sun. Yeah, so this is the deep investigation of what we just aligned to, and this is very helpful for, you know, dealing with my energies that triggers a lot of these karmic, deep karmic pains in us. Yeah, the shame, the guilt, the fear of the apocalypse, and so forth. So we're doing this together so that you have an antidote. And some of you may not know why you're even doing this, or you might not fully understand what all these metaphysical and spiritual concepts are that lie underneath it. But trust me, as Annette shared, there will be a day, a moment in your life where you will know what this is for. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Leave a comment. Leave a comment in the forum how you like this experience, these transmission experiences live. Yeah, I'm in a process of deciding if I want to do all energy sessions here in the Energy Training Club live, at least offer the opportunity to do that. Yeah, give me a feedback. Yeah, or if you prefer to do this in your own, you know, on your own, it's up to you. And of course, keep sharing in the forum, because this process here of spiritual initiation, that's just the beginning. Yeah. But it is a direction manual for your earthly experience. Thank you so much, and especially thank you for sharing here. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.